having light, we pass it on to others. Wittenberg University, founded 1845 in Springfield, Ohio. During your 4 years of Wittenberg, you are not allowed to cross or step on the seal because it would be considered bad luck until you are a graduate. I am from the class of 1992, so I get to step on the seal.
Well, if you got a dollar on just a lousy down, know that I got rhythm that could suit your budget fine.
So today, as part of Trusty Travels and part of the road trip, I am passing through Wittenberg University, where I graduated from years and years ago, to see the campus that I have not seen in person probably at least 15 years, and see what kind of changes. So we're at the gates of the university. Before we go through the gates, show a couple of the buildings that are kind of like just outside. So this is Ferncliff Hall. So this is one of the dormitories. I did not live there. I knew a couple people who did. So you've got kind of that hidden into the trees. And then across the street is one of the older buildings, the Benjamin Prince House. That is where the president lives, president of the university lives. As you go through the gates, they've got a banner up, assuming that graduation just took place or will be taking place soon. The motto for Wittenberg University is having light, passing it on to others, or having light, pass it on to others. So the symbol is a torch. So they're having the campaign for the Wittenberg University is, as any university, is always raising money. It looks like they haven't turned the fountain on yet, but this is a stone fountain. A lot of these landmarks were gifts donated by different classes. Sometimes there's plaques. I'm assuming this was a class gift, and there it is. Yes, it was from the class of 1928. So that is kind of at the base of the hill. I am from Chicago, so when I came to school in Ohio, I was not used to hills, and I think that's how I lost some of my weight, because that is my dorm. So you can see it's at the top of a hill. Those adventurous among us would use a sled to slide down this hill on the sidewalk when it was icy, which was often in the winter. And we will cross up to Myers Hall, the original building of Wittenberg University. Before we get up the top of the hill, as most schools do, there's the tradition, or there is a seal. So here we have, having light, we pass it on to others. Wittenberg University, founded 1845 in Springfield, Ohio. During your 4 years of Wittenberg, you are not allowed to cross or step on the seal because it would be considered bad luck until you are a graduate. I am from the class of 1992, so I get to step on the seal. So get a good look at Myers Hall. So this was the first building on campus. It was built, when it was built, it was actually white. And then eventually I took on the red color for the bricks. And the cupola was there, the tower at the top, but the columns and the portico were not. So some of the earliest photos from the school show Myers, which was the entire school at the time, show it white and columnless. So the stairs were there just wasn't the big pillars. And if you continue going up, and then you go up the steps of Myers Hall, I'm going to try and zoom in here. You see that there's a light hanging in front of that window in the middle of the columns. That was my dorm room. And that light was very bright. There was a period of time that we had aluminum foil in our windows. And the marketing department didn't like that because everyone taking pictures of Meyer didn't like the way the aluminum foil looked. So the back of the light is blocked, so it doesn't shine directly into the window, but that's the only light for the entire quad. So it is a pretty bright light. I will try and look. I will try and look up some details throughout this video to give dates and things like that. I can't remember when the columns were painted, but it is definitely the most important building for the history of Wittenberg and one of the most beautiful buildings on campus. So I am back at the Seal, having come down the stairs and down the walk. You can see heading south, you've got the entrance where the fountain was, but I came back to the Seal because I wanted to show kind of some perspective. So on this side is Recitation Hall. You see that there is a sidewalk that goes directly to that. There's another sidewalk that heads to what used to be the science building, and when I was here was the business building. I'm not sure what it is now, and also where the commencement hollow, there's like a little area where graduation ceremonies would be held. And then on the opposite side of the Seal, the other sidewalk, that heads straight into a building called Blair Hall. That's where the education department was when I was here. I think I took some language classes in the building, but the language departments were in another building that's been torn down. So we are going to head toward Recitation and see what's on the west side of campus, because Recitation is my favorite building on campus. Unfortunately, we're probably going to get a little blinded because it is getting late in the day and the sun is starting to go down behind the building. So I am staring directly into the sun as I'm walking toward the building. But I wanted to start showing it from far enough back because it's a big building. It's got this great central tower on it that rises up. And as we get closer, you won't be able to see that. The big rosette window on the south side and the north side. Some great symmetry. I just always liked the way this building had the two-tone brick. This was the administration building. So this was where, we paid our bills, more admissions stuff. So stuff that I would have done prior to becoming a student. But I popped in here every once in a while. I remember I was the president of the speech and debate team, and we took a team photo on the staircase from inside that building. So Recitation Hall. This was the second building built on campus, and again, one of my favorites. I'm going to go head south along the main drive here from Recitation to see, I can't remember what this building's called. But like I said, I think when it was built, it was the Science Center. And then I took what did I take here? I don't know if I took many business classes, but that's really what was in here. And then the advisor to the speech and debate team was based here as well. Carnegie Hall. So we have our own Carnegie Hall. So it doesn't say what it is now, but this is Carnegie Hall. So this, based on the postcard collection that I've been building, this would have been probably the third building built, because a lot of the earliest photos show Recitation Hall and this building side by side. So you've got a little bit of a different profile on this one. I don't even know what architecturally this would be considered. I was trying to look on the website and see if we can give some history on this. But you can see, so we have Carnegie, the Carnegie Hall building here, and then as we turn up, there is the side of Recitation Hall. And from the lawn of Carnegie Hall, you can see how the grass is built up with stone risers, retaining walls. That is Commencement Hollow. So you've got a stage for graduation itself and places for all the families to sit. I don't really remember pretty much anything else taking place in this place. I think it was always for graduation, but there may have been some dance performances or things here. And then over there in the woods, there is a little bridge. That was the Kissing Bridge. I think there was a story about the Kissing Bridge. I do not remember the story about the Kissing Bridge. I was never on the Kissing Bridge, but there's the Kissing Bridge. Evidently, the class of 2007 ran out of ideas and donated a rock. So we're now coming to the north side of Recitation Hall. You can see up on the hill, the side of Myers over there. You can kind of get an idea of what the Wittenberg campus looked like and why I lost some weight. So that is Myers Hollow. So we did Whitstock was there, very college thing. Like we pretended like we were in the 60s and it was Woodstock, but it was the late 80s and not Woodstock. But a great open area, play frisbee, all kinds of different stuff. Sloping hills to do sledding on these as well, usually using trays from the cafeteria, but there was a far more dangerous place to do that, which I'll show later. Not a lot of changes. Well, here's the backside of Recitation Hall with the big extension. I can't remember what sits in there. Maybe offices, I can't remember. Not a lot has changed. That building was, and I think probably still is, the art building. That was Koch Hall. I don't remember the parking spots being here, but, you know, progress. Up at the top of that hill is the Zimmerman Building. It used to be the Zimmerman Library, and it's just got some beautiful stonework in that. And the library had long since moved when I was here, and so that building remained and was the psychology building. So as we cross in front of Koch Hall, we are approaching the Weaver Observatory. I think this one dates is a little bit later. I want to say this one dated to the teens maybe, but I'll look up the date on this one as well. And it is a functional observatory. There is a telescope in there. I don't think I ever took an astronomy class, but they would have events and things for the students. And so I have been in there. But again, this, you know, I don't know if this would necessarily count. Maybe this would count as university gothic. You know, that whole thing, turn of the century, going past that, giving some gravitas to the buildings that were being put onto campuses across the country. So I'm going to show this behemoth of a building in a little bit, but I'm walking past the side, and I wanted to highlight one part of it. There used to be a dormitory that had originally been another part of the campus building called Keller Hall. And when they tore it down, they retained the outline of the building, so the profile of one wing of this building that they built. And then I can't remember if that entire portico came from the original building, but you can see it has the Keller Hall name up to 1901 from when it was initially built. So they wanted to kind of, it was a brand new building. They just couldn't really keep the structure. I think it was about to fall over. But they kept the honor of it by keeping the portico. And like I said, I'll try and show the profile if I can recognize it. But that is the liberal arts building. So the languages, English, there's a bunch of stuff in there. That was built after I left. So this was my primary home for 4 years. It appears to have gone on steroids since I've been gone because this is way bigger than it used to be. So this is the science building. I remember when it was being added onto, it's now the Barbara Deer Cuss Science Center. I only know that because the name's on the side. I want to say the part to the left maybe was what was original there, but I don't know if it was if it was that many stories. I don't remember. The atrium definitely is new, so there's a lot more labs, a lot more lab space. Wittenberg is a liberal arts college. I had quite the complex getting a Bachelor of Arts degree, yet being a major in chemistry. So I made the foolish decision to get an American Chemical Society certified chemistry degree, which meant I had to take extra classes. And my senior year, I was in a class with 2 people, the 4.0 student and then me. So I begged they not grade on a curve. But definitely learned a lot, used it for about 6 months, and then decided I wanted to do something different. But that's not Wittenberg's fault. So that is the science building. So I'm behind the science center, and there's a big air conditioning unit behind me, so that's where the loud noise is. But that white building on the corner, that was a home of one of my good friends. What I remember notable about that one is it was a really nice apartment that she was in her senior year, my junior year, and I would have liked to have moved into it, but the landlord would only rent to women, which I thought was not fair. So you've got a lot of old historic homes that became campus housing, they're off-campus housing, but they were owned by the university. But when I was here, there were more houses that went all the way down this street. So they're still on the one side, but they tore them all down to create tennis courts. And lest you think that this is simply a commercial for Wittenberg, it's not. It's a trip down memory lane, and the fact of the matter is, for a Division III school, I believe they've had 2 or 3 major renovations to the sports center, yet we still don't have a performing arts center. So sports definitely dictated a lot of life at Wittenberg, which was unfortunate for me because I couldn't care less. But we did have a very strong basketball and football team as a Division III school. One stayed a couple of times, I think. I don't really care. But a lot of people did, and they still put a lot of money into that because that's a lot of alums are coming out of the program. We need to graduate more theater people so that they can start donating money, and we can finally build a building dedicated for the theater program. So this is the back of Holland Beck Hall. So Holland Beck Hall was built probably early 2000s, I think. I don't think it was planned while I was still here. I knew people that lived in Keller, so that was a dorm when I was here. But you can see the size of this as I'm walking around it, trying to get to the front. So this takes up the north part of the hollow. They tore down Keller Hall. They tore down a building that held the radio station. I used to have my own radio show. I'm sure the radio station moved to someplace else. I'm trying to think what else was here. I think the health building. So there were a couple of small buildings that were not of architectural significance. So if I back up, I thought maybe that. No, that's not a very interesting profile. I can't remember what the profile was of Keller Hall that they wanted to make, but they ended up building one very large building. I can't remember. So I remember they did something neat with the profile, but I can't figure it out. So anyway, so this is Holland Beck Hall. Languages moved in here, as a lot of schools are struggling. I think I was a Russian area studies minor, and I think the Russian program is gone. What was particularly notable when I was here was the East Asian Studies program, and I think that's gone. So they're trying to define themselves, as many colleges are doing, and COVID is not helping. Oh, and we're perfect timing to see a Wittenberg gray squirrel. All gray squirrels are Wittenberg gray squirrels, just ask any Wittenberger. So we've got a gray squirrel. So Hammond Divinity Hall had been built here in 1914. There was a theological seminary here on campus. Wittenberg is related to the Lutheran Church. I am not Lutheran, so you didn't have to be Lutheran to go here. But Hammond Divinity Hall had already been torn down before I even started, so they just had the plaques here to remember that original building. So coming off the east side of Holland Beck Hall, you get a better look at the old field house, the natatorium, and then the new basketball courts and everything. And then there's a new stadium down there. The tallest building on campus is, when I was here, was the absolutely aptly and unimaginably named Tower Hall. But since then, they've actually knocked down a dorm that existed during my days and have named that for the dorm that was torn down. I can't remember what that is, but the building still exists. What does not exist is the other half of this building. Now, admittedly, I thought this building was gone too. So there used to be 2 buildings, Synod and... I'm tripping down from my lane now, falling flat on my face. Synod and Lehman? Synod, I don't remember. and they were kind of like 50s or 60s built. Don't want to show a license plate. So there's Myers Hollow. So what's left evidently is Synod. It's got that mid-century modern aesthetic, although when I went here, it was just old. So you've got that academic green, the big panel windows, and so there used to be not really a mirror image, but there were two buildings that were built at the same time that were then connected. So Synod and then the other one, when evidently the other one's the one that got torn down. So they both had the same aesthetic. Well, no, that's saying Synod too. Okay, maybe they didn't tear it down because there's no way there's enough room for another building. So, okay, they just call the whole thing Synod. What do I know? I barely read the alumni newsletter. So this is all Synod. So you've got the only really mid-century modern structure here on Wittenberg campus. So we're now at the back of Myers Hall. And just tell you, those Adirondack chairs were not around when I was here. If you wanted to sit, you sat on the ground. So we've got, they don't know how good they have it. So that is Myers, 5 levels. And then across the little street is a hill. This hill is very scary when you're writing on a tray that you stole from the cafeteria. But we all did it. And again, the ones that were the most adventurous also did it down the concrete steps toward the seal. But you couldn't step on the seal, so you had to bail out before you got there. And then we're coming up to Weaver Chapel, which, even though Wittenberg is a Lutheran college, it is a non-denominational, they do non-denominational services inside. But as I get to the front, I'll show the tower. There is Lutheran imagery in the tower. So you can see some of the stained glass. It's in the entryway. So Weaver Chapel was built in 1954, so I guess technically it would be mid-century modern in age, but not necessarily in aesthetic. And then as you get to the tower, so I try not to kill myself walking up the steps while filming upwards, you can see there are 3 figures. One of them is Luther. I have no idea who the other 2 are. I was never a Lutheran. I just went to a Lutheran school. I remember there was something about each one of them has something painted on them. As you can see, a little bit of color on each one. Again, no recollection of what those are supposed to be. But it is one of the landmarks that you can see from a distance because we are still up on the hill, and that is Weaver Chapel. As we come down the steps from Weaver Chapel, we are now at the side of Blair Hall. I remember there was a small theater in there that did one-act plays. So I think that was the only time I was on stage. I believe one of the plays I had no lines, but I'm not bitter. And I don't think these trees were this big when I was here. But this is, well, a name I don't recognize. This was Thomas Library. So this was one of those modern buildings that they had created. I think it was built in the 80s, maybe 70s. And it does connect to the chapel, but it kind of in a weird way. It wasn't like you had necessarily a pass through. But you've got this white cement stucco side. Oh, okay. So it still says Thomas Library there. I have no idea what the Compass Suite Success Center is. Here we go. Compass Suite Success Center, your one-stop collaborative learning support center. Stop in or make your appointment today. Okay, whatever. And hey, they've got a coffee shop. I don't think that was there. So as you turn away from the library, you see the side of Woodlawn Hall, which during my day you could not see because there was a building that was built during, I think it was right after the war, that was supposed to be a temporary building. And it stayed, and I was, stayed into the 90s. So it wasn't all that temporary. So they finally got rid of it when I think they built some new dorms. And so that was where that big green space where all the chairs are now, that used to be a building just as long as that brick building. But the Woodlawn building is more historic. And so it is nice to be able to see that from the quad. They did get rid of some of the it was very architecturally disjointed when I was here. And there's still some issues. Thomas Library doesn't really match anything. The Student Center, which is what we're walking toward, doesn't really match anything. But as they built new buildings, I think that's a dorm, that didn't exist. Those were also homes when I was here. So as they've started building new buildings, I think they tried to be more consistent in the look. Some administrative buildings, some student center houses that still exist between here and Tower. But a lot of this has changed. For one, this used to be a through road. So they have paved it, closed it off on either end so that it's now a pedestrian mall, which is actually really nice. And then I can't remember what used to be there. I want to say there was a building. I don't remember. But this is the student center. When it was built, my boss at the library, I did work at the library, my boss at the library joked that it was like building a perfect bullseye for people to throw rocks at the window. And I was a good kid. I didn't even think like that. So I don't think anyone ever broke out the windows. But there are lots of bullseyes here. And as I walk along the wall, we got a little plaque that I do not remember. Values the totality of the human experience. And part of that human experience is Wally Witt. That would be a wall. And that would be Wally. So Wally Witt. So if he sometimes got dressed up, took pictures with him at graduation. He's got a Wittenberg Letterman jacket on. That's Wally Witt. So as part of the mall, they did the Wittenberg W into the stonework, which is kind of cool. Now we're coming to the front of Woodlawn Hall, so that I'm assuming is still a dorm. Somebody's there, so I don't want to get him on campus. Oh, and there used to be another building to the south of that, aptly named South Hall. South Hall is also gone. So that was also one of those quote-unquote temporary buildings. So they tore that down too. So there's a lot more green space here than when I was here. So it's always been a beautiful campus. It's gorgeous in the fall. And they've opened it up even more, so we will see even more. So we were walking now on the south side of the student center. I'm going to cut through the parking lot, and there's a reason I'm doing this. Because I had an off-campus apartment for 2 years, and about 3 or 4 years after I lived in that apartment, it was condemned, and they tore it down. So my apartment was, let's see if I can zoom in here. There's a little brick building, stone building there on the far corner through all the trees. That is now Madison Avenue Pharmacy. Madison Avenue Pharmacy used to be a tiny little building behind our apartment. It was an American Foursquare. You could see the basement through our bathroom floor. So it needed to be condemned. It was in pretty bad shape. And that was in 1991, 1992. And I believe we were paying $600 a month in rent for just 2 bedrooms. So they had a racket going, and it could have killed us. But that is where our apartment used to be. But it was convenient because right across the street from that is Carnegie Hall. And Carnegie Hall is the music building, not the theater building. We never got a theater building. Music building. And my college roommate, the huckster, my daughter's godfather, was a music major. And so he could walk across the street to his practice rooms and his classes, where if you can piece together some of my video, I was way on the other side of campus. I literally could not be farther away from my apartment into the science building than I was. So again, I lost some weight. So there's the front of Carnegie Hall, and you can see there's still some buildings, some homes that are on these side streets. I'm not sure if they still have a Greek system. Looks like there's a letter on the side of that one. But some of these were, I think, may have been fraternity or sorority houses, but some of them were just apartments. Then there were these buildings which existed at the time I was here. That was faculty court. The faculty didn't necessarily live there, but I think they had the option to live there. And sometime I could share the fun story of a not so memorable night in faculty court. So Wittenberg University, 175 years. Celebrating 175 years of passing light on to others. So again, this is the side of what was what I had called Woodlawn. I think that's still its name. But there was another building here on this big grassy area. So we just never saw the side of that building because you really couldn't see it through South Hall. So this beautiful building was here when I was here, but it was vacant the entire time I was here because right before I became a freshman, it was the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity house, and they had been disbanded. I don't remember the story. I don't remember if I want to say, though, it wasn't willingly. So this was just an empty home. They did recreate Phi Kappa Psi, and I wanted the Phi Psis, and I want to say they started my senior year again, but they didn't get the house back. And so they turned this house in 1995, it looks like it by the plaque. They renovated it and turned this into the Bailey Alumni Building. So it was a fraternity house. Now it is like a semi-administrative home, you know, kind of a Tudor revival, front door. I'm here so late in the day, nothing is open, so unfortunately I can't show inside. I've been in there since it was an alumni center, and just some beautiful wood accents in there. And then they have a lot of historic artifacts, you know, that alumni have donated to the school. So that may be where my collection goes once I go. But it's a pretty building. I'm not doing it justice because I'm too close to it. But this is the last building I was going to show before I head back to my car. So this was my tour of Wittenberg University. Not 100% sure why I wanted to do it. Basically, it was more of an opportunity. I was driving through the area. I hadn't been here in a long time, so I wanted to see it for myself. And Wittenberg is struggling, like a lot of schools are. You know, financial issues, academic, class size. COVID is not helping that. So, you know, I'm making my financial donations where I can. And like I said, this didn't end up being a pure Wittenberg commercial. But if I have to admit to it, it was the best 4 years of my life. And I think a lot of people would say that about their alma mater as well. So if nothing else, if you're just watching this because you're watching me, or maybe you're even watching this because you're interested in Wittenberg, or you're taking your own trip down your own memory lane, remember your alma mater. Remember them financially, remember them kindly, remember what they did for you and what they set you up for your future life. Hopefully that was a good thing, and maybe it's time to pay them back. A lot of schools need help right now, and yeah, I don't know if this is really going to make any difference, but happy to put it out there, and happy to take a little tour through Wittenberg University. So this is Trusty signing off from the class of 1992 of Wittenberg University. Thanks for your time. Thanks for putting your trust in Trusty Huckster, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Well, show me a sign if you're wishing me to stay. Otherwise, I say goodbye, finish out the day. And that sunrise in the morning and you got nothing to say. Oh, that's when I'll be headed on my way.